Hi, this is Peter Woolfolk speaking. Now, first of all, thank you so very much for listening to the podcast. Now, I am very excited to let you know that the podcast is now available on Amazon Alexa. You know the drill. Simply say, Alexa, play Public Relations Review Podcast, and she'll take it from there. And again, thank you for listening. And if you enjoy the program, please become a subscriber. Now, on to the podcast.
Welcome. This is the Public Relations Review Podcast, a program to discuss the many facets of public relations with seasoned professionals, educators, authors, and others. Now, here is your host, Peter Woolfolk.
Welcome to the Public Relations Review Podcast and to our listeners across America and around the world. Now, Gayle Falkenthal is an earlier contributor to the Public Relations Review Podcast, and she is the president of the Falcon Valley Group, a San Diego-based public relations consulting company. She spent 15 years as an award-winning broadcast editor and producer with Kogo Radio, KPBS Radio, and KFMB Television before transitioning into her public relations career. Now, since the COVID-19, the use of the virtual press conference has really gained warp speed, and I believe that this was the ideal time to talk about how to effectively produce and use this important tool, and that Gayle was an ideal person to talk to about it. So, Gayle, welcome to the program again.
Thank you for having me back, Peter. I'm delighted to be with you.
Well, look, before there's an actual press conference, there's certain things that have to take place in advance. Let's talk about what some of the basic things are that you need to do in advance to have a successful press conference.
Well, first of all, I really strongly advise everybody with their clients or employers to determine, do you really need a news conference to begin with? Mm-hmm. Is this the only way to get your information across to the news media and any other audiences that you might have? They're a very easy default choice. News media don't tend to love them. They tolerate them. They understand the need, especially if you do have to get information out in a timely manner to a large audience. You have participants who have limited time because they're either perhaps elected officials, celebrities, somebody of that nature. And it does provide for group Q&A, so it can be a time saver, a very good one. And a virtual press conference really can save you a lot of resources. Travel time, setup can be much simpler. Mm-hmm. But once you've determined that you're going to do one, the virtual press conference is set up and prepared for exactly as you would if people were coming in person, with the one exception: you need to determine the platform and the technology to deliver the press conference as if people were sitting there. Mm-hmm. So you're still determining what information you need to impart, who's participating, what are the order of events, how are you going to take questions, what's the location, how are you going to present multimedia content. That's a real problem in person that is a lot easier with a virtual press conference if you want to roll in video or show graphic slides, photographs. And how are you going to interact with people in a virtual news conference? Are you taking questions? These are the things you have to do when people are coming to you. Now you do them when you're coming to them. Mm-hmm.
Well, as you said, some of the things, because it's virtual, do you advise people to maybe send some background information in advance so that they will have it and can maybe look at it to determine their questions, maybe some charts so they can understand what it is that they're going to be seeing prior to the event taking place?
You know, I advise people to not overthink it too much just because your format's different. Ask yourself, would I do this if I was inviting people down to City Hall or to my business's conference room or to the site of my new construction project breaking ground? Whatever that is, would you send out this material in advance, or would you just simply say, here's the advisory, here are the participants, here's what we're going to talk about, time and place, RSVP if you want that. Otherwise, we'll see you there.
Okay.
Honestly, for a lot of news conferences, you don't need a lot of advanced material other than to give people an idea of what you're going to talk about.
All right. I mean, that certainly makes sense. I just happened to think the one time I was going to have a client that was going to release a report. This report was whatever it was, 25 or 30 pages. Now, we did embargo that and send it to them so that they'd have a chance to review it. But as you said, the circumstances you described, well, a lot of times you don't have to have it. I certainly agree with that as well.
Well, and a lot of news conferences are held because of the speed factor.
Mm-hmm.
How much are you going to be able to put together in advance? Probably not a lot. The other danger is that the embargo has virtually disappeared. With people being able to publish at will anytime, it's pretty darn hard, especially if you're inviting a large group to a news conference. Chances are pretty good your news conference is going to be announced along with the topic and what you're going to cover long before they get to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind that being done in advance, there's no embargo, great, no problem. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be providing materials during or after the virtual news conference. Again, if you would pass materials out, if you would give people a Dropbox to visual assets, video, photos, graphics, you're going to do the same thing with a virtual press conference as you would when they were with you in person.
Okay, that's the sort of, I guess, information we're looking to, that how they're going to access it and so forth, but the Dropbox and so forth, that certainly makes a lot of sense. It's accomplishing the same outcome, so to speak.
Right. Well, and one of the reasons that a lot of journalists do not like news conferences is the visual elements can be very lacking, especially the typical news conference with a speaker standing at a lectern
mm-hmm.
with a graphic or a poster standing next to them. You know, truthfully, that's just sheer death, especially for television and for anybody who is an online reporter. And even radio reporters have an online element these days. So you really need the visual element. And a static news conference, not always the best.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of visual assets can you provide? Do you have B-roll video to provide? Do you have interviews that you can provide, still photos you can provide of a project,
mm-hmm.
even if it's architectural drawings or graphics? Some sort of visual aids are going to be really important. You can have that set up in advance via a link in a Dropbox, whatever format. There are many companies to choose from. Dropbox is sort of the cloud version of using the word Kleenex for tissue,
mm-hmm.
but there are many of them. What you do need to be sure is that everyone can access it. It isn't unnecessarily complicated, that if you're protecting it with a password, that you test it and it works across all formats, because there's nothing more frustrating to a member of the media to go to your Dropbox folder and they can't get there.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll come back and probe and ask you to help them, and maybe they'll just say, oh, never mind, and move on to the next story.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that being said, what that says to me is that to double check whatever you're using to provide information to people, make sure that it's easily accessible, and they know that in advance because you've tried it and it does work.
Absolutely right. And you might send it to a few colleagues, send it to their home computers,
mm-hmm.
send it to family computers, send it to a few trusted news media and say, hey, could you just try this out and make sure that you can access this for tomorrow's news conference?
Okay.
And that's a little road test, especially for technology, is always a very smart idea.
Well, great. Now let's talk about the nuts and bolts of this thing, getting down to the meat of the bones. So let's say you're going to move forward with it. Have you certain platforms that you prefer to use, and if so, why those particular platforms?
Well, the idea of a news conference is to get news out and have it be broadly out there. There's no reason to use anything too proprietary. And the most simple way to do it, in my opinion, and I've used both, is to hold it live via YouTube or live via Facebook Watch.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can access it. Everyone knows how they work. Everyone usually has a Facebook page for their business organization or a YouTube channel, and you really should all have a YouTube channel. And this is the kind of place where it comes in handy. Not only can you set it up to start at a certain time, you can advise people. You can use it as an event advisory. Your YouTube channel will send out a notice to subscribers. And it also records, so for anybody who could not attend live, it's still there for them. There's no reason to keep it private. You can control comments if you like on a chat. There's ways to turn that off. I happen to be a big fan of doing them via YouTube.
Okay.
Because the technology and the platform is proven, and the recording aspect is a plus. Facebook Watch, it works, and many large organizations use it. It's a matter of critical mass because so many people are users of the platform. I'm not sure it's as professional from a branding point of view, but it certainly works and it is very seamless. If you're concerned about the availability of the platform, then there are ways to do it by all the typical conferencing type of software that we all know and love. Another format that's not a bad idea, it's a little trickier but can be used, is Skype. You can do a video Skype call, invite multiple parties into the call, and that's a little more private. It's not out there for everyone to find and see.
Mm-hmm.
There are also multiple companies, businesses out there who do produce press conferences. They can set up a webcast for you. They can set up the typical virtual meeting environment, but with multi-camera setup. These are for somebody with a little bigger budget that wants to do something perhaps larger. Perhaps you've got large business organization whose target audience is the business community, shareholders. You've got the budget to do it. It's not a bad idea, if the budget permits, to hand the technical aspect over to professionals. But for the vast majority of small organizations, small businesses, nonprofits, the truth is with a half decent video camera or even an iPhone, you can do it.
Well, I think that you touched on something very, very important, that in planning a press conference, folks should understand what it is that they want to get out, how they want to get out, and who they want to get it out to. And that because there's so many platforms. I was just seeing now that Google Meet has set up video conferencing opportunities. LinkedIn has also started video conferencing opportunities. So this platform or the platforms have grown seemingly exponentially, probably within the last year or so.
They have, and we've all seen them. Again, we use the word Zoom as if it was a generic term, like Kleenex for tissue. It's not. There are many choices. One other thing that a for-profit platform provider can do for you is if you want to keep the virtual press conference on your own platform, in other words, on your website or on some other proprietary channel. That is one plus of doing it that way. But the truth is there are plenty of off-the-shelf methods. They work perfectly well. And for the most part, most news conferences, press conferences, feature speakers. They're just simply speakers at a podium to be quoted. The visual elements can be a struggle. So if you think about it that way, if you've got the visual assets available separately via a cloud system, Dropbox folder of some kind, the platform you deliver it on might not matter as much as you think it does, unless you want to see people recorded. But let's look what's happening in the current universe, and let's look what's happened to the expert live interview, or any interviews, or your local newscast, or your favorite late night talk show. They're all being done using various conferencing platforms, somebody looking into a camera as a talking head. And guess what? It's working just fine. As long as there's a way for your participant journalists to record it, or for you to provide a recording that they can use, you'll be in great shape. That's all that's necessary. Now, if that's the case, let me also suggest that a good old-fashioned conference call can frequently stand in just as well, especially if there's a heavy Q&A component that you'd like to hold, and if you'd like to keep it private. Group conference calls are frequently done when the attendees are spread out all over the country, across time zones, and when it's the interview portion that's more important. The visual assets can be provided on the side or later.
Makes a lot of sense. One other thing I'd like for you to comment on, of course, are the people at the podium, because there are sometimes that some folks appear to be unprepared as to how to go about handling the media, how to respond, how not to respond. Could you sort of comment on that aspect of it?
Preparing our speakers is such an important part of our job. It can often be the most challenging when you have a speaker who thinks they don't need any preparation. Well, they do. And unfortunately, in a virtual news conference, it's up close and personal. There's also the issue of navigating the technology. Where do I look? How do I perform to my best? There's an extra layer of nervousness or tension for some speakers. It's a real good idea to do some kind of dress rehearsal. And if you have a reluctant student, a person reluctant to be coached, don't know I've got this, oh, I'm fine, I know exactly what I'm going to say. Well, you've got the most ideal leverage in the world. Well, I really need you to go through this to help us make sure the technology works. Would that be okay, George? Would that be okay, Rebecca, for you to do this? And then you can have them run through it, and you are going to be able to slide in your tips, or perhaps the person will be smart enough to realize, maybe I do need to rehearse this a little bit more. And the truth is, you really should do at least somewhat of a rehearsal, even with tremendously polished clients or senior management. You've got to make sure that the new setting doesn't throw them off a little bit from having done it in person. The addition of a camera that they know is there, unblinking eye, can really throw off even the most polished speaker.
Well, I certainly am glad you brought that up, because that is a tremendous issue sometimes, because you're right, there are some people who, and I've seen it happen, that no, I don't need this, I've got it, I'm just ready to run with it, and then the wheels come off. So it's a little bit too late to recover then, but unfortunately they've learned, but the scenario that they learned it in was just not flattering to them. So listeners, if you've got somebody under those circumstances, please get them some media training, so that things will go a lot better, and the outcome would be much more to your desire than the opposite. Gayle,
it's our job to put them in the best light, and sometimes they don't make it too easy on us. That doesn't matter. Then you've got to find another way around getting to them. A lot of times we're communication professionals, but we've got to slip into our alternative jobs as therapists, coaches, psychologists, and so on.
Well, Gayle, you have provided us with some excellent guidance and some tips. Now, is there any sort of closing wisdom you'd like to provide to our listeners?
There are a lot of these virtual press conferences going on. in today's environment due to the pandemic. Pick up your favorite 24-hour cable news network, MSNBC, Fox News, if you will, C-SPAN, government channels. Watch some of them. We have daily news conferences in most states from their governors, in many counties from your county officials, your public health officer, and they're frequently available across channels that we can access so that I can watch the governor of Ohio or the governor of Tennessee. Governor Mario Cuomo of New York has practically become daily viewing across the United States and the world, not just for the people of New York. Mm-hmm. Watch what they're doing. Watch and learn what goes well, what visual aids come across well. Does the question and answer session make sense for you and your client? There's nothing that beats a little bit of study, and watch and learn from the successes, watch and avoid the mistakes, and go through YouTube and do a search. If you do a search for news conference, you're going to see plenty. Many of you are probably extremely familiar with news conferences that take place that seem virtual to us as viewers among our favorite sports teams and personalities. And they do this frequently leading up to games or events. So do a little study. You'll see what you like. You'll see what works for you.
Gayle, again, thank you so much. Our guest today, Gayle Falkenthal from the Falcon Valley Group in San Diego, has joined us. And again, thank you for joining us, Gayle. And let me say to our listeners, thank you for listening. And don't forget to listen to another edition of the Public Relations Review.
This podcast is produced by Communication Strategies, an award-winning public relations and public affairs firm headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, this is Peter Woolfolk. First, let me say thank you so much for being a listener. Now, I want to alert you to our shiny new podcast website located at podpage.com. However, you can go directly to the podcast site located at publicrelationsreviewpodcast.com. There, you can contact me through email. You can leave a voice message. You can leave a review. You can read an episode blog and frequently learn about the podcast guests. You might also want to suggest podcast topic ideas or even suggest a guest. You can also let me know if you would like to receive our podcast listener logo that you can post on your social media. So I look forward to hearing from you about our new podcast website. Thank you so much for listening to the Public Relations Review podcast, and have a great day.